Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started and go through our slides, and I will uh, do my slides, and I'll turn it over to Zach. And as I said, then we'll save plenty of time at the end for questions. So, just to start with, this whole project began as an economic impact study for the Illinois Association of Agricultural Fairs. And so, before we move on to the slides, we sort of want to define what we mean by an economic impact study. And so what we're looking at with this study is the dollars that are being spent on traveling to, attending, and purchases made as a result of the county ag fairs in Illinois. So that's really what we're going to be looking at, and our survey is relatively simple. How this whole program started is the Illinois Association of Ag Fairs works directly with the Illinois Department of Agriculture, and they were looking to do sort of an impact study so that they had talking points. When they talked about ag fairs in Illinois, they wanted to be able to talk about their impact. Most of us know sort of the softer kinds of impact that they have, you know, the leadership opportunities that they give for the 4-Hers and the FFA students and those types of things. But they really wanted some dollar values to be able to associate with that. And so they contacted us and asked us if we would be able to help them out. And it was sort of a natural partnership because, as the educators know, most of the state dollars for extension and the 4-H program do come through the Illinois Department of Agriculture. So it seemed like a natural fit. And we put together a team of educators and specialists and solicited assistance from the Department of Urban and Regional Planning students to make this project work. So we wanted to give you all sort of an overview of the project process. And once we had solicited a wonderful graduate student to assist us, in Alex, we sort of worked through some of the initial stages of this process. We came up with the survey design. Well, we didn't come up with the survey design. We talked to people from the Southern Rural Development Center who have done a similar study, both for the Helena, Arkansas Blues Fest, and then the University of Kentucky Extension has used a similar survey to sort of do individual assessments of their own county fairs. So we borrowed heavily from them and with their permission and sort of redesigned a survey, which you're going to see later in this presentation, to design the survey that we have sent through our internal review board. Zach's going to talk quite a bit about that, but we'll sort of move on. The survey design was crafted with the idea of the economic impact studies that have been done in other locations as well. We've looked at a lot of different fair impact studies from the West Coast, from the East Coast, and all of those kind of things. So we sort of got a good feel for the kind of data needs that we were going to need, and that Southern Rural Development Center survey seemed to fit the bill quite nicely. And we toyed around with different ways to do the question format. We originally had it set up as open-ended questions. Then we went back and redid it into categories of age, income, amount of money spent at different for different items, and that's going to be of great use for you because it means that people can literally just check the answers to their question. There's also a script at the top of the survey, and when you actually see the survey, you will see that, and that can either be read to the participant or you can let them read it themselves. There probably will be the opportunity for both of those things to occur as you are handing out the survey at your fair. And as I mentioned, because this is a survey that is being administered to human subjects, I'm not quite sure what kind of surveys are not administered to human subjects, but since this one is, we did send it through the Internal Review Board at the University of Illinois. It was ruled as exempt. Zach can go into the real details of that later, but it's been ruled that it's not going to hurt or be identified with any particular participant. So that's basically the process that we had to go through and just show them that the questions are very benign. No one's going to be able to be identified or hurt by this process. Most of you probably really want to know how we selected the fairs since your fair got selected. And basically, we did that based upon a lot of discussion with the Illinois Association of Ag Fairs boards, and they are divided into 3 regions. Initially, we had thought we could do it with a fewer number, but it came down to we thought the most we could possibly do over the summer is 15. And so what we did is we looked at the 3 regions that they're broken up into. They basically have a northern region, a central region, and a southern region. We decided we would do 5 from each region. We wanted to do at least 1 fair in each region that had no carnival, because roughly that 20% figure is kind of the overall figure for the state. And we also wanted to balance it between attendance numbers. So with those things in mind, Alex went ahead and did a stratified random sample and sort of came up with the counties that we have that are being used in this particular study. So that's how they were selected. We didn't just decide we were mad at you today, so we picked your fair. So there was a process that went through. So there are 2 different sections of data that we're going to ask for your assistance in helping to collect. The first is the intercept survey at the gate, and that's going to be the quantitative data, and that's going to be the hard numbers that are going to be used to determine the economic impact of the fair. But we've also had a few questions approved by IRB for key informant interviews. And with those questions, what we hope to get to is some of the more fuzzy benefits, for lack of a better term, that are had in communities and areas because of the agricultural fairs. And so we will probably ask, and Alex is going to be helping with all of those interviews, but I think it'll be a great opportunity for some of you in the youth to be able to really learn how that process happens and sort of those probing questions to get down to deeper levels of information on how these fairs are impacting our communities. So that's sort of an exciting process. Hopefully we will be able to get at least 1, if not a couple interviews at each of the county fairs that we are doing the surveys at. And that's really going to provide a good backdrop for the economic data. And it will hopefully help in the report to help tell the story at a much deeper level than just the hard numbers. Once the data has been collected, we will be entering all of the data into SurveyMonkey, which is a really interesting tool that we can use to, once the data is entered, to sort of analyze the data, download it into a spreadsheet, run all sorts of statistical analysis on it, and turn it into a better type of information that can be used in the report. Also, we will be utilizing software called IMPlan, and I will let Alex and Zach tell you more about that because they're the data people, not me. So, but we will take care of entering all the data. And one of the interesting things for you to know is that each of the surveys have been printed by the Illinois Department of Ag on a different color paper. So nobody has to write down what county fair they're taking this survey at. They will all be in different colors of paper so that when we get them, when we enter them into SurveyMonkey, we will sort of sort them by county and be able to provide for you specific information for your county. So that's kind of an interesting ability with the color coding, and so you'll be able to give information directly to your fair board as well. So in the data analysis, we look at what kind of information we want to be able to provide, the type of statistics that are going to be ran, and sort of the report format. And we have to take a step back and really think about what the information needs are of our client. And our client in this case is the Illinois Association of Ag Fairs, and they're well aware that they need to make their case to the taxpayers of Illinois and the legislature of Illinois that the money that is allocated to the agriculture fairs is well utilized within the county. So that's what they want the information to be able to communicate to the Illinois legislature. So there's a wide array of ways that that information can be compiled, and Alex will be running the IMPlan software, and he will also be putting together a formal report. And so all of those kind of things sort of flow from that data analysis. So when the report is compiled, there'll be sections that are directly geared towards the data and the types of information that they'll want to give their lobbyists, that they'll want to be able to talk to their legislatures about. And we also have to take a look at what do they really want to know. They want to know that there's a return on investment for the money being put into agricultural fairs in Illinois. So that's what they want to know. And so you have to take a step back and find out how much detail they really do need. And so that's going to be Alex's job through this process, but we will also probably offer a webinar like this for the youth involved, for the 4-Hers who are interested, so that Alex can really explain what he's doing with this data that you helped collect and how he's putting it together for the report and what are those important pieces of information he's trying to highlight. So there will be the opportunity for the 4-Hers and anybody else who wants to participate in that webinar to really find out how this data is being compiled for the Illinois Association of Agriculture. Then there's going to be opportunities for also the 4-Hers to participate in a formal presentation next January at the annual conference of the Illinois Association of Ag Fairs. They have asked for a presentation to their entire body to talk about the results of this analysis. So you'll want to look at how long that presentation needs to be. What are those key points that we're going to highlight after that data has been analyzed? And there'll also be portions that will be done individually, and then any of the 4-Hers that are involved are going to be invited to participate in that presentation. Once we know how many want to, we'll figure out how that's going to look. But I know that the Illinois Association of Ag Fair board was incredibly excited to have this opportunity to not only tie it with extension, but also with 4-H, which is so very important to their ag fairs and as well as FFA. So you'll get the opportunity to hopefully work with Alex and develop those PowerPoints, be able to look at handouts and what needs to be highlighted in those handouts, and perhaps even work together to put together some posters that can convey much more than the economic data. In terms, as I said, those key informant interviews, and also for you as youth that have participated in ag fairs in the past, this could be a wonderful way for you to talk about the experience that you've been through as well. So there'll be lots of opportunities in the fall and into the winter, especially if you're still in your counties, to be able to be involved in this. If you're headed off to college in the fall, if there's the opportunity, we would love to be able to work with you on that presentation. And I think that is always the weekend of Martin Luther King's birthday, if I understand correctly, if you want to mark your calendars. And it's like a 7:30 a.m. breakfast in Springfield. So I hope everybody's a morning person. So, and now I'm going to let Zach take over and to talk a little bit more about the IRB process and what that means.
Thanks, Carrie. I'm going to just talk a little bit more about IRB and what that is and what it means. And then at the end, I'm going to turn it over to Alex, and he's going to review what the actual survey consists of and talk a little bit more about the actual collection of the data. So all research that's conducted in affiliation with the University of Illinois has to go through this approval process. And what the approval process looks for is it's an ethical review of research involving the human subjects, as Carrie mentioned. I'm also not sure what kind of survey you would do on non-human subjects, but for our institution, University of Illinois, all of the research review is done by the Office for the Protection of Research Subjects, or OPRS. And then research proposals, as Carrie mentioned, are reviewed and submitted to an institutional review board. So what is it that the IRB is looking for when they review research proposals? They're making sure that the research design does not violate certain principles of human subject research. And I'll talk a little bit more detail about sort of the main principles of human subject research. So the first one is consent. All people must give permission to be in a research study. She mentioned that there's that paragraph at the top. That is considered informed consent. So you're letting folks know that what they're getting involved with and what their information will be used for. In some cases, a person can give consent for someone else. Parents can give consent for children. However, other family members cannot give consent for someone else or for an adult unless they are that person's legal representative. So the sort of second principle is respect for persons. And this principle really requires that researchers treat individuals as autonomous human beings, or in other words, people who are capable of making their own decisions. And really they're looking to make sure that the research does not use people as just a means to an end. So this principle also protects people who have limited autonomy for themselves or limited capability to make their own decisions. And so sort of the rules that are derived from this principle of respect for persons are, again, the requirement to obtain informed consent from individuals, and also the requirement to respect the privacy of research subjects. The sort of next principle is called beneficence, and this principle requires researchers to minimize harms and maximize benefits to the folks who are taking the survey. And sort of the rules that go along with that principle are the requirement to use the best possible research design to maximize the benefits and minimize harms. So the requirements make sure that researchers are able to perform the procedures. In this case, we're doing a survey, and to handle the risks associated. Carrie mentioned that this project has been called an exempt project. And what that really means is that when they did an initial review of what we were proposing to do, they decided that there was not a significant threat to folks who would be participating. So it did not require that our research project go through a full review process. They kind of looked at the questions and said, this is kind of a low level of risk for people. So they went ahead and gave it an exemption, which meant that we could proceed and we've been approved without having to go through a full review process. And then the final principle that I'll touch on is the principle of justice. And that kind of requires us to treat people fairly and to design research so that the burdens and benefits are shared equitably. And what that really means is the requirement that you're treating everyone who's taking the survey equally and fairly. And it also requires that you're not going to exploit vulnerable populations or populations of convenience. So basically, in short, you're not going to take advantage of folks who are taking this survey. So to re-summarize, the ethical principles that I just discussed and the federal regulation to go along with institutional review boards provide a framework for different surveys to be evaluated to make sure that they're not harmful to human subjects. And so I know that was a big mouthful, but I thought it's important to learn a little bit more about that process and to know that someone else has taken a look at our research and has signed off on it and said that we're good to go and this isn't going to adversely affect or negatively affect anyone who participates. I'll keep this part short because I know that you folks want to see the survey, and so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex.
All right. Thank you, Zach. So I'm sure, as Zach mentioned, after hearing all the strict rules, you're all wondering probably what on earth are we going to ask these people. And if I can figure out how to change our slides here. There we go. Before we take a look at the survey, I want to clue you in on just a couple different things. Carrie mentioned a few things before that I want to talk about real quick. One was why each fair was selected. She mentioned there was a stratified random sample and different things like that. One of the main purposes of the fairs that were selected, why they were selected, is because of their geographical area as well as how many people generally attend that fair. And so with that, with each fair comes a minimum number of surveys that we're after, and you will be given that number if you haven't already. And there is a little bit of leeway within that number as well. That just makes it easier on our end if we have smaller or the correct amount of surveys. But what that does do, for an example, if in your case you have a fair that requires 300 surveys and you get 235, that would suffice. We'd be able to work with that. But however, if we get more than that, it makes it a little bit more possible to do some more specific data analysis for your specific county or your specific fair. If we get less than that, that may mean your fair will be lumped into a broader category and won't have anything specific to your specific county or fair. And so given the size of your fair or your event, that speaks to the amount of surveys that you'll need. And one of the reasons we're doing this, Carrie mentioned the in-plan modeling process. So what our goal here, an economic impact study, there's several examples that the state of Illinois does. One that I'm familiar with, they do an impact study for the Chicago Marathon every year. And so what that says is it says how much money does the Chicago Marathon make for the state of Illinois, and more specifically the city of Chicago. And if any of you follow the news of the marathon, it's been making money for the last several years, which is a rare occasion when it comes to city-sponsored marathons. But one of the reasons they are able to show that they make money and the benefit that it has is through an economic impact study and through asking questions like how much money did you spend on food or lodging when you're at these types of things. So that's the kind of questions that we're going to ask. And so we're going to ask how much money you spent on food, if you stayed the night, how much money you spent on that type of thing. And those are the type of data requirements that we need, and you'll see that come out through the survey. And so there's a couple different roles that we really appreciate your help with, and you probably know which one it will be. So there's two roles, as you can see if you're staring at this slide. The first one is the role of the supervisor who will be there, and in many cases that will be the extension employees. In some cases it may be a member of our project team, so myself or Zach or Carrie or Bill. And their primary responsibility is to set up the survey locations and to make sure that the survey protocol, as has been cleared by IRB, is followed. And that's the reasons that Zach just gave us. We need to make sure people's confidentiality is maintained and things are happening correctly in that aspect. And the other major role is undoubtedly you're going to come up with questions, or more so the people who take the survey will come up with questions. They might ask, why are you asking me this? Or what do I have to do? What type of answer are you looking at? And those are the types of questions that if those administering the survey, the volunteers helping us, if they don't know, they can take that to the supervisor and you can answer those questions. And I'll cover a little bit more of what some of those questions may be in just a second. And then the volunteers who will actually be approaching people and inviting them to participate in the survey, that's their main responsibility. And one key thing to remember is this survey is voluntary. We don't need to make anyone do it. We don't need to force anyone to do it. And if they're not interested, they're not interested, and that's no big deal to us. And you're also inevitably going to get questions about what is this? Why are you asking me to do this? And so that's one of the reasons, one question I hope to answer in the next couple minutes, and to give you a better idea and a little bit more knowledge base to answer these types of questions as they come to you. So here, if you can see that survey, it's a little bit blurry, but one thing to initially pull out, we designed this survey to have 4 specific sections that you can kind of see outlined in different sections of the survey. And it's one page, it's not front and back, it's just the front. And so it should be an easy, quick thing to do. It should take no less than 5 minutes for those taking the survey. And first key thing to know is we need 1 survey per household. What that means is if you have a family that's coming through the fair gates, we don't need the father and the mother to take that survey. We don't need the father and his 16-year-old son to take that survey unless there are 2 very specific income, they're doing different things. If for some reason their son is staying 3 days with his buddies in a hotel, then that might be a different reason to take that survey. But in general, we're looking for only 1 survey per household. And so that should kind of help you clarify and choose as you approach people to participate in the survey. We don't need 4 people from 1 family filling out the survey. And those last 4 questions, I'll cover those first because those are some of the ones that might get a little bit relevant to the IRB questions or IRB details that Zach just mentioned. These are questions, if you can't read them, it asks what your age is, what your gender, what your income, and your occupation, type of employee you are, and your race. And these are questions in the survey world we just call control questions. So that helps us understand a little bit of the demographic profile of people that are attending fairs, and as well we can make inferences that we can say something like those who have an income somewhere between $35,000 and $50,000 on average spend this amount of money at the local fair. So those are the types of reasons we ask those questions. It won't be anything more specific than that. And so if you're asked, which most of you will undoubtedly be, why are you asking me how much money I make? Or why are you asking me what type of job I have? The easy question and the simple answer is it just helps us understand who's coming to the fair and what type of people are attending the fair. And so that's a simple, easy answer for you in that case. The next, we'll go back to the beginning of the survey here. This just asks the type of attendee you are. It's who's visiting the fair. Who are you? Are you an exhibitor? Are you a vendor? Are you there to watch an event such as a rodeo, concert, demolition derby, something like that? Or are you just there to enjoy the activities and carnival of the fair, there to ride the rides and other things like that? And then on several of these questions, there's an other component that if for some reason someone doesn't feel that their reason for being there or their answer doesn't fit in our given answers, they are welcome to write in why they're there. Or they can write in their job, or they can write in their race or anything like that. And so be sure to make that clear, and if they ask that question, well, you know, my reason's not here, you can just invite them to fill in the other category there. And a couple other questions in that first section, we want to know how often they've been to that specific fair, including the year, this year. So if this year was the first year, then they've been there once. If they've been there every year for 5 years, then so on and so forth. And we're also interested in where they're from, just their home county and state. In some of our fairs, we anticipate, especially on the borders down around St. Louis and Chicago and other things like that, we expect attendees to come from outside of the state, which brings a different economic impact to the state of Illinois. So that's why we asked that question. And so, again, that's just what's your home county and state. If people aren't comfortable sharing that with you or sharing that with the survey, one thing, again, to remind them is any of these questions can be left blank. If we feel the survey is not useful with some certain questions blank, we will just simply ignore it. But they are not required to answer every question in order to hand in the survey. But that's the reason we're asking that specific question, is because it holds a different economic impact than those who might be coming from a neighboring county. The next two sections are the most important, and the ones that we foresee might be the most complicated and have a lot of questions. Question number 4, which is that center section, if you can't read it, it talks about how much money people spend within the fair. And so what that means is physically on the fairgrounds are anything that's there, including food, events, crafts, rides. So if they buy a corn dog there, if they buy a ticket to a concert, if they, pay entrance fees, or if they buy their kid a souvenir, if they buy carnival tickets, all of the above, that fits into that money category. And so it's how much money is spent within the fair. And then every question after that is how much money is spent outside of the fair. And it's important to understand that these are two very different things. If the money comes out of someone's pocket and it goes to somebody within the fair, a fair vendor, anything like that for a fair event, it does not be included in the next section. And so that's one thing that you will get some questions about, I'm sure. And hopefully, if you have any questions, we can cover that a little bit afterwards. But that's the reason we need these two different things. We need money that's spent within the fair, and then we need money that's spent without the fair. And without the fair is the more important of these two sections. And so that's questions 5 through 9. And that asks, how much money do you spend outside of the fair? So that means if someone's visiting a local fair, how much money did they spend on food outside of the fair? Say they went to dinner at a restaurant outside of the fairgrounds, or something like that. They went to bars, clubs, other things like that. Anything they bought food and drink from outside of the fair. And then we also ask about lodging, which will include hotels, motels, campgrounds, RV parks, anything like that. And then transportation, you will get some questions about, I'm sure. This is going to be how much money they spent outside of the fair in general. So some people might think, are you only asking how much money I spent in this city or in this county? Because if I traveled 4 counties, I spent, gas at my home county or something like that. In the case of transportation, we're just interested in the total number. We don't expect them to try to work out the math of, I bought gas here, here, and here, so you're only interested in that. We just want to know, in general, in coming to this event, how much money do they spend on gas and convenience stores or rental fees for cars and other things like that. One thing to keep in mind, any food bought at a convenience store falls into the transportation category and not the food and drink category. And again, it's not crucial if these two are mixed up. It just makes for a slightly different mathematical calculation. But that will probably be a question you get. Say I bought, a couple sandwiches at a gas station. Do I put that in food or do I put that in transportation? And the answer in this case would be transportation. And then we're also interested in how much money they spend at just local retail stores, including grocery stores, hardware stores, department stores, so Walmart, anything like that, or their local Schnucks. And then where the last category is commercial services, and this would be things such as laundry, mechanics, or hospitals, clinics, something like that. And so those are our 5 categories that are really important that you understand the difference of. And we have several examples in each of these questions, so hopefully it should help paint a pretty accurate picture of the types of places we're looking at as far as how much money they spend. And you can help them understand and make it clear that this doesn't need to be exact. If they spent somewhere between $75 and $100, they can put whatever they're comfortable with. You can put 80, you can put 90. It's not going to make a huge difference, but we would like them to be as accurate as possible. And so those are the types of things. We're looking at kind of a $5 increment on both of these 5 or 10, whichever is the easiest for them. So we don't need any cent values, anything like that, because if that comes in, I'm just going to round it anyway. But so that's a brief overview of the survey. Pretty straightforward questions. Again, 1 page. And one thing to point out right now, if you can see the survey in the top right-hand corner, like you might see in similar forms, there's a little grayed out box that says for office use only. You don't need to worry about that. They don't need to fill anything out up there. That's just simply for myself when it comes to recording these and making sure that I get everything in the right spot. So if you're asked, do I need to put anything here? Your answer is no. Okay. Let me make sure I covered all those details. Again, the biggest thing, we don't want to cause any confrontation or any challenges for those administering the survey or taking the survey. So just a friendly reminder that this is all voluntary. If someone gets halfway through the survey and then decides, I don't want to tell you this, I don't want to answer this question, they don't have to do it. They can keep the survey, they don't have to turn it in, you can throw it away, whatever they're comfortable with. And so be sure to make that clear to them, and if you find anyone that is overly hostile or doesn't seem to be very cooperative, feel free to refer them to the the supervisor, survey supervisor on site, or the internal review board, or any of us will be there, or any of the project team, myself included, who are there, or they can also contact us via email or phone, and our contact information will be there. More specifically, Carrie's will. And so that's kind of a brief overlook of the survey and some of the typical questions and clarifications we'll probably have. And then next is our key informant interview questions. And as Carrie mentioned, the key informants, this will be people such as the livestock superintendent, perhaps members of the fair board, and any other person who's highly involved in the fair organization and such, and so on and so forth. And the reason we're targeting these individuals is because we are not only looking for the economic impact, the financial side, which is what we just talked about, we're also looking at more of the community learning. And a great way to think about this is we're looking for data and stories that we can use to frame the economic impact. So, for example, perhaps a fair is less profitable or causes a smaller amount of economic impact than another, but because of its size, its community members and fair attendees are able to become more acquainted with agriculture or different aspects of the local community, and so it might be more beneficial to the citizens there in that case rather than just strictly the money case. And so that's one of our goals for the key informant questions. And as you can see, these questions are pretty specific, pretty generalized as far as, what do you think the benefit this fair has on your community and other things like that. And the role with the key informant interview, how that will most likely work depending on who is attending your fair out of the project team. Most of them will be done by myself and several youth, I hope, if they're not too tied up doing other survey things. And so what we'll do is I'm in the process of setting up these interview times, and we will talk with these individuals, and I'll ask them these questions, and we'll take notes and discuss and ask follow-up questions to try to get an understanding of why they feel strongly about the fair, the benefits of that fair, the unique characteristics of that fair, and we're really looking at something different. Why is their specific fair on the other side of the state, or why is their fair different from a fair that's 5 times their size? Simple things like that. And so just one specific question, I won't read through these all, but one thing to give you an idea, and one question we're particularly interested in, is how are the new trends in agriculture changing your fair? So that might mean, perhaps the organic trend in agriculture, is that changing the types of events you have of your fair? Is that changing the type of exhibits or the type of judging and other things like that? And what effect does that have on the local community? Is the local community more involved, less involved, more interested, less interested, that type of thing? And so those are the type of questions we'll ask. And again, we're looking for data to tell a story of that local fair. Why is the fair happening? Why do people come to this fair? And, you know, what's the benefit that it has on the community? So, again, just a few words on the final report that Carrie mentioned that I'll be putting together and we'll all be putting together. There will be two primary sections. One will be just strictly the financial side, strictly the economic side, the math, the big numbers and things that people kind of glaze over when they read. And then there'll be this key informant and what we call qualitative section. That will be the local community benefits, the social benefits, and the trends in agriculture affairs that we see in the state of Illinois. And we're hoping to have some sort of correlation, some sort of comparison between economic benefit and social benefit of these fairs. And so there'll also be a section where we have recommendations and say, this is what we see happening. This might be something we see is working well. This might be something we see is not working so well. And so we will tie these two together. It's important to understand that this report is not going to be two very different reports. It's one, and both of these studies, both of these surveys and interview processes speak very well with one another. And so that's our goal. And as the report comes due and as we get closer to the conference, there will be other people involved. I'm working with, you know, the Department of Agriculture lobbyists to understand what type of information they want, they need, they use, and other things like that. And it's also important to note the purpose of this report is to strictly say what the results of our survey is. And so if our survey tells us that there is less economic benefit than perhaps we thought, that's what we say. We're not going to make this say something that the survey doesn't. So you don't need to be concerned that we might change the data, because that's the whole point. We have a survey, so we are not making things up. Now, hopefully you have some questions, but before that, I'll turn the last little bit, question follow-up, back to Carrie.
Okay. I noticed that we have 17 participants, so hopefully we can accommodate all of the questions. Make sure if you want to ask a question, you unmute your phone first, because I have been known to talk to myself on these with my microphone muted. So feel free to jump right in and ask any questions you might have for myself, Zach, or Alex.
Carrie, this is Bill. Not a question, but just a reminder, we need to share with the counties on tonight, for all counties, that compliments of the Illinois Agricultural Fair Association. They have provided 10 universal fair passes for each county. Staff are encouraged to use those in giving those to 4-H members that are actually going to be the data collectors for us at the 15 county fairs. And those passes are good for admission into the front gate, but they are good for the entire duration of your county fair. So if your fair is good for 7 days, going on for 7 days, you have a pass that can get you in on the fairgrounds for 7 days. So this is their way of saying thank you to our 4-H members for their willingness to step up to the plate and help us identify the true economic impact that county fairs have on the Illinois economy.
I'll just add a little bit to what Bill just said. Not only are the universal passes good for the whole week of their county fair, they can actually be used at any county fair in the state of Illinois. So if they happen to want to go to a neighboring county's fair, they'll be able to use these passes there as well.
Thank you, Bill, for remembering that. And the other thing that we wanted to make sure we reminded everyone is to make sure you have a receptacle for people to put their completed surveys in. It can be a box, it can be a small office trash can, it can be a Rubbermaid container, whatever you happen to have handy. Hopefully Alex will be carrying around some of those with him in the university car that he'll be driving. And but we want to have some place to put the completed surveys. And I noticed that Leah just sent a message and wanted to know if that pass included the state fair. And Zach, did Bill tell you whether that included the state fair? I seriously doubt it.
I'm looking at the actual pass itself, and it says to be honored at the front gate only for admission to any county fair. So I don't believe it includes the state fair.
Okay. Any other questions tonight?
So Carrie, you contacted the fair boards to determine the date of which day we're scheduled, correct? Do we know those yet?
Yes, Alex is working directly with the fair boards, and is that you, Cheryl?
Yeah, sorry.
Mercer, I thought it was. Mercer County, I believe, is July 11th. Am I correct on that, Alex?
I'm looking at it right now. Let's see. You are correct.
Oh, it's Friday? I thought it was Thursday. Email Jenny.
Did you say the 11th or 10th? I'm sorry.
The 11th.
It actually has
Oh, no,
changed.
it is the 10th. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was the one we just changed.
Yeah.
we swapped Mercer and Marshall.
Yes.
Okay, so that's why it's the 10th then. And are we supposed to be at the gate to do these? Is that what you're thinking?
It actually doesn't matter. So we're kind of leaving that up to you. The gate is kind of a logical spot because we're looking for a variety of people. There might be people who are coming to the fair just to look at 4-H events, or there might be people coming to the fair just to go to the carnival. And so wherever spot you feel you can get a variety of these types of participants, that's totally fine with us. The front gate is just a logical place where people will see you, they have to walk by you, that type of thing. I will have emailed to you and as well brought to, it will be in the box of surveys that you receive, a list of kind of instructions or guidelines of what we're looking for, and there will also be several large 11 by 17 posters that just say, this is the economic impact study, this is what's happening, this is what it's for. And so you can kind of set that up wherever you feel it would be useful. And it might be that you find the night of the Demolition Derby is when everybody goes, and you just want to set up there near the grandstands, whatever you have to do to get the amount of surveys that we're after.
We got to do it that. So we're limited to that one day, but we have to get 500 surveys in one day in Mercer County?
No, you're definitely not limited to the one day that we will be there.
That's what
you have the entire.
That's the day you're going to be there. Somebody's going to be there.
Right.
We have the entire fair to do it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But on that day specifically is when we will do the key informants, and I'll be there. And so I tried to set up the schedule, and I worked with the county, the fair boards, to set up a day where they think most kind of the busiest day that they have, or the day that we'll get a variety of fair attendings or fair events that they want us to see and experience.
Thank you for that clarification, because that day is a really, really busy day. So we were worried that we were going to have to do is be there from 6 a.m. to like midnight to get 500 surveys. So, okay.
No,
thank you.
and Cheryl, on that date, both Alex and I will be there to help out as well.
And are we setting up the key informant interviews for you, or who's doing those?
I'm doing those. If you would like to set them up, then you are more than welcome to. But I'm in the process of doing it right now, so.
Okay. Well, we didn't. Okay. No, we got plenty to do. So,
But Cheryl's comments and questions raises another question that I have, Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
If we, at the end of the fair, where do they return the surveys to? And who do they return them to?
Well, all they have to do is let us know that they're done, and we will make arrangements to either pick them up or get them mailed in, and especially like for ones that are close to one of the team members, we can sort of pick those up from their offices. As long as they keep them secure, we will make arrangements, for the ones down in the far southern part of the state, and I know Leah's on the call today. We may just pay to have it shipped to our unit here. Most of the data entry will probably be done by my program coordinator. So we'll probably have them sent to the Knox County office.
I noticed that Kathy Brown asked a question about will there be media releases that we should use, and then the follow-up question, we'd like to create a sign for the drop-off of surveys. I think Alex just mentioned that there will be posters created for the to set up for the drop-off. It'll be 11 by 17 with information and logos and details about what the survey is. What about the media releases?
We hadn't really discussed doing media releases because a lot of the locations have very limited media outlets, and in some cases only like a weekly paper. So we were sort of just going to have the signs. The fair boards are aware of it. I mean, we can certainly put together a media release if people want one. Alex, do you think you could perhaps do that within the next week?
Oh, sure.
I mean, and we can set it out, and we can also list all of the 15 counties that we're doing the fair in, and then that way people have an idea of what's going on, and we can have that sent out statewide as well as provide it to each of the units involved.
I know me and Zach were approached to do a radio spot with the, I don't know his name, Ag Force One guy.
Awesome.
Remember his name, Zach?
Oh, Gail Cunningham.
There you go.
Okay. Somebody said my name, so.
Yes, Carrie, this is Bill. And when we met with the IAAF board back in April, their media communication specialist, Marla Behrens, had requested a press release.
Oh.
And I worked with Judy Bingman in our office and supplied that to her. I'm going to find a copy. I can send that out to the youth educators and CED educators tomorrow.
Awesome.
So, and share with them that this is a copy that was delivered to the Illinois Association of Agricultural Fairs communication person for their use with local fair boards in those counties that have been selected, the 15 counties selected to participate in the face-to-face survey that they could use as they're gearing up for their fair and building excitement and momentum for getting people to the fair, announcing that the survey, economic impact survey, would be going on during that fair week.
Awesome.
Alex, and Carrie, we've presented a lot of information. Alex, can you just, not to put a final point on it, but can you succinctly just describe the role for the youth on the day of the collection, just for the benefit of our youth who are listening to this webinar?
Yes, for sure. So primary responsibilities is you will be helping inviting people to take the survey, and so you'll have clipboards, all that fun stuff, and wherever you're set up, you'll approach people and invite them to take the survey, or people will approach you because they've seen the signs or they've heard about it and they want to participate. And so your role is to hand out the surveys, answer any questions that they might have, and if you don't have the answers to those questions, you go to the survey administrator there, which might be the extension staff or myself or someone else on the project team. And if the answer is still not had, you can refer them to our contact information that you will also have. And then once the survey is done, you'll put it in, this completed surveys go in an indicated box receptacle of some sort that you'll see, that you'll have. And so your job is strictly just to hand out the surveys, and when they're done, put them in a box. That's all you have to do.
And of course, if you are interested in participating in the presentation later on in the fall, we will contact the youth educators in the county and let them know about the availability of another webinar in the fall, and then opportunities to present to the Illinois Association of Agricultural Fairs as well. And Kathy has also mentioned that another important contact might be to notify the tourism and economic development offices at the county or community level. If you have those contacts, we can also suggest to the CED educators in the units that have one that they might be want to do that as well.
So it says that locally they'll give reports as well. When would that happen, and to whom would they give those to?
And that is optional. With the youth, if they would like to give a report to your fair board as to the results for your county, we will make that available to them.
We will get reports of our own county then, individually.
If you would like them, yes.
Yes, we would. Is that okay, Alex?
No, absolutely. That's the plan.
Yes.
The only mild hiccup that we might have is if you don't have enough surveys. If you don't have enough surveys to reach the statistical minimum that we need, you might be lumped in with kind of a regional basis. So you're the next closest counties, and kind of so for your general area, this is the type of impact. But I don't really foresee that happening as long as we hit our minimum, which should be fairly easy to do. For our smaller fairs, if you're really concerned, I need at least 100. That's kind of the magic number there. The bigger your fair is, that minimum goes up quite quickly. But for our really small fairs throughout the state, we need at least 100. And if that happens, we can do a very localized report. And I'm happy to work with any of the youth that are interested in this process and want to know how it works. I'm happy to work with them and help them understand the academic benefits through college, as well as the professional applications that this can be used for.
Hey, Terry, this is Melissa Wilson. I've got a quick question.
Sure.
We start with our 4-H fair on Friday of this week, and then the regular Hamilton County Fair rolls in on Monday. So since we're right around the corner, can you tell me when we'll be able to get surveys, or what day, or who's coming down?
I think Bill put your surveys in the mail today.
No, Carrie, I did not put Hamilton County. I put Greene County in.
Oh.
So, but Melissa, we will overnight those items to you tomorrow. You will have them on Friday.
Okay.
For next week, what address would you like for us to ship them UPS to?
Please send them to the Hamilton County office.
Will do.
That would be great, because I'm under the impression that, when we start Friday, we start with livestock shows and everything at the fairgrounds, so we can take that time starting Friday all the way through the end of the fair to collect. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
And as far as who will be there, I believe both Alex and this is Zach Kennedy. Both Alex and I will be there on. Alex, do you have the schedule in front of you?
I do now. We are going to be there on the 20. Hold on. What fair are we talking about?
19th.
Hamilton. 19th.
Yep, 19th.
On the 19th. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
No problem. Is there any other question? And obviously, if questions arise, you can contact any one of us, including Bill, Alex, Zach, or myself, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. And if we don't know the answer, we will find it out for you and get back to you. So I want to thank everybody for taking the time to participate tonight. I know this is sort of a non-traditional time, but hoping to get as many of you as possible. And we have recorded this webinar, and we will be emailing it out to everyone involved once we've had my program coordinator clean it up a bit. And so you will have it to refer to and the slide set in case you need to look up anything. So thank you very much for participating. Any further comment, Alex or Zach or Bill?
Just
I don't believe so.
thank you very much for all your help now and in the future. I look forward to meeting you all.
Great. Thanks, everybody, and hope to see everyone soon. Bye.
Thank you.